Huh? It took a minute. But we're here. We're live. Hello. This is Loose Canon. Someone double check for me and make sure that the audio is working, because I'm just like a little paranoid about it.
Yeah, it is. I just opened it and checked.
Okay, awesome. So as you can see, we have Baxter up there. Guardian doesn't have a camera. Rhino doesn't have a camera.
But we're here.
We were gonna do a card trick, but as all card tricks and magic tricks are, they are rigged. And Guardian and I forgot to tell Guardian what the rig was, so I ruined it. But I mean, it was a joke on the Borderlands 3 presentation. So let's just get right into Destiny talk.
So you want to hear a story, huh?
Yeah. Let's hear a story about Destiny, though. So last week we started talking about the light and the dark. Guardian couldn't join us last week. Were you sick?
Yeah, I was pretty much on the couch shivering the whole time. So.
That sucks. But you actually have a very old theory that I was so excited to actually get more of, because it's kind of it feels like it's coming true. Like the universe is being set up to actually say yes to your old theory. Specifically from the new Gambit Prime class items. I think it's on the Warlock. The Warlock bond. It mentions when the Drifter was on the ice planet. Just in case we didn't cover it last week. When the Drifter was on the ice planet, he hunted down the ghosts of the people he killed, and he used them to make his ghost more powerful. And he specifically mentions ghosts could now tap into spectrums of light no one on Earth had seen yet, spectrums beyond the light. Don't get me wrong, I'm no herald of the dark. This was a kit bash job. So that kind of sets the stage for Guardian's theory. Do you want to just start out with that and just really get us going?
Yeah, so the theory really is, it's not that complicated, and it's one that does exist in the real world. And it all kind of started with, I think it was Taken King, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was when the theory started.
Yeah.
After reading the whole entire book of Oryx, and getting through to it, and just kind of coming to the conclusion that the light and darkness don't actually exist. Like, there is no true light and there is no true darkness. Those are just shades of energy. And the world is it didn't really seem to be going that way until recently, where now we're starting to see more of walking the line between light and dark. You have kind of your gray areas. We're doing a lot more stuff that's hey, you're not doing what Guardian should be doing. Hey, you're not walking in the light. Which is kind of showing that our Guardian understanding and the people we're running into, who are way smarter than us, have a better understanding that the light isn't its own force. The light and the darkness are not two opposite forces that exist in the world as they are, but they're more of just two beings that oppose each other, that use the same energy that everyone else uses, just in different ways.
And so, with the Drifter's ghost, it's he can tap into a different spectrum of light, and he's I'm no herald of the dark. It's well, why would you say it can tap into more light? But also, I'm not for the dark or anything. It's so are you using the dark? Is that what you're... That's how it reads for me.
Yeah, it reads that way for me as well, because it's kind of... It's it's an odd thing to say if that's not what he's hinting at.
Yeah, right?
You know, I'm no herald of the dark, but I can go beyond the spectrum of light that most Guardians can use. Kind of implies that that's what a herald of the dark would do.
Mm-hmm. It's I'm no herald of the dark. Normally, I can't even use the dark. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, I don't mean to offend anybody, but...
Disregard the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
that's pretty much what everyone says to make themselves feel better about what they're doing. Oh, I'm not really playing with the dark, but I am. But don't worry about it.
We're rationalizing our bad decisions.
That's kind of what he was going on about. Like, early Drifter is talking about how, like, back in the Dark Age, even using void light was considered heretical, and he thinks like that the Vanguard is too strict, the Praxic Order is too strict. We need to use darker things. So it's like it's this whole basis on that he actually understands that light and dark are just like two sides of the same spectrum, and it's like we're all getting closer and closer to this middle point, but we're still drawing the line in the sand and saying we can't go over that point though, because that point is the dark and we won't do that.
But I think it's interesting because there are definite philosophical differences. Like, you know, like it's one thing to say, okay, you shouldn't use void.
But
right?
would that be the sky and the deep? Like, the philosophy?
I mean that's what I feel as though it can't just be a coincidence that all of the bad people in the universe are using one side of this spectrum.
Yeah.
And all of the good people are using the other side of the spectrum. Like, if it is just a spectrum of energy and anybody can use any energy, then why isn't the Traveler using all of the spectrum? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is it that's...
Yeah, I think the distinction is it's not a question of good or bad. It's just there are good people that do bad things with dark and or light.
I mean,
good has been done with or bad has been done with light, and I would not be surprised to hear that good has been done with dark either. I mean, to say that void was once heretical, void was viewed as using the dark, like, we've done very good things with void.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Defender bubbles. They're the only good. They're the only good. Everything else is like pretty like fuck you about it, but...
Well, still, like, Night Stalkers is, you know, like, not...
Well, everyone hates Night Stalkers and Mayhem. That's what I'm saying. They're not doing any good there.
Unless they're on your team.
Yeah, then everyone loves them.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is actually an interesting point. With Void being seen as the heretical, the only subclasses that actually have a suppression ability are Void. We have the Titans with the Suppressor Grenade, which is a Void grenade, and we have the Hunter with the Dusk Bow, which will suppress abilities. So it's that is actually kind of
Yeah,
but the vampiric nature of the void that the warlocks wield. What's that all about? It kind of drains the enemy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, drain the light, give it to me type of deal. Yeah.
And you know
we're already kind of Dark Guardians in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like the Thorn Quest as well. It has in D1 and D2, with both of the Thorn Quests in D1 and in D2 have had some sort of void connection, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's why void was seen as heretical. It was
maybe.
Like, oh, you're making a thorn? That requires void light, so clearly void is bad.
Maybe. You know, you could be onto something.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, didn't Felwinter use void?
But I guess that kind of negates, like, okay, so for Titans, I mean, that was one of the verse, you know, I mean, the shield was to protect everything inside, and they saw that as using void light in a protective way.
Yeah, maybe that was like the kind of divide, because like when you look at when in Taken King, when we got the Night Stalker class, Cade was kind of like, you know, be careful with that, you know, that'll mess you up. So like I can kind of see where like void being bad was observed, and maybe it was Defender Titans who were like, no, void can be used for good. Although even so, there's like a quest step where Ikora is kind of mocking Zavala and how he thinks it's like kind of stupid that warlocks use void for like such massive destruction, and she's like, what do you think happens when people shoot your Ward of Dawn? It vaporizes the bullets. Like, just because you're using it to protect doesn't mean it's not massively destroying everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, remember when they did that Vidoc, and they even talked about how void was very much gravity. That was a big news for us when we finally got confirmation what void was bound by, or what energy they were trying to, what's the word? Describe, I guess, in the real world for us to kind of connect the dots.
And what
kind of a
dancing
key point to say that
Hmm.
to say that void was bound by gravitational force.
Mm-hmm. And what Dancing Virid has said, that's another thing. The Hive and Taken use the same three elemental energies, and light and darkness aren't elements. So tapping into darkness would just enable different types of perk trees for the existing three elemental damages. So, like, that's exactly what I think. Whenever someone says, like, oh, we're going to get Dark Guardians, I don't want to be like, oh, yeah, now I'm using dark power. No, it's like I'm still using solar power. I'm just using that's not the right way to use it, solar power. It's
So
like
I put it in the chat. If you look at the, I was just playing around and I was looking at color wheels and trying, because, being an artist and seeing the different colors, I'm always one click around what's opposite of what, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think of red, yellow, blue in regular reflected color palettes that you use to paint, that's one thing. But if you look at light, it's different. So you have spectrums of light that diffract differently, but whenever they meet in the center, they all either make black, true black, or they make true light. So you have a void of light and just a pure white. But the primary colors are very much what they're using within the game. Some of them we haven't seen yet, but if you look, there's purple, there's the cyan, and then there's yellow, or I say magenta, cyan, yellow. So solar, arc, void, but then you have like green. What do we associate with green? We think about the hive and the thorn with its green eye and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think they might be onto something, or it might not mean anything. But if you look at the way that the colors kind of meet in the middle, there's definitely something to that.
I mean,
I'm just looking at color wheels now.
Well, there's color wheels, but there's like a distinction. There's light color wheels, and then there's just straight palettes of color. But
yeah, like
if
color,
you're looking at
light spectrum and pigment.
If you look at the spectrum of visible light that we can detect as human beings, I mean, there's a whole array of colors that we can't even perceive that exist, that we just don't have the visual capabilities, the physical capabilities being able to detect. But in between each one of those colors, there are ribbons of black, and that's because when the waves sync up, the waves negate each other. So whenever you have a division in the spectrum, if you look at light through a prism and then you see it refracted on a wall, there are very distinctive lines in between each color, and that's because that's where the colors have met and made true black. And those are the lines that you see in between the colors.
So then I have a question. When Gaul came and took our light, he shields the traveler. That's kind of what triggered the Drifter and his crew to kill each other out on that icy planet, because they all thought one of them took the light from each other, and one of them was like hiding it. So ultimately the Drifter lives and he upgrades as Ghost. What happens now if something happens to the traveler? Could the Drifter still do stuff? Like, if light and dark are of the same, but our power is tied to the traveler, why is it tied to the traveler specifically? If the traveler does die, are we no longer guardians? Are we useless? Or could we learn to get a power source of something else?
I don't think so. I mean, just going off of what we've seen so far and witnessed so far, I would just say no. But my reasoning is only because, Cabal were able to turn off the light switch, and we were very much disconnected from its source. So that means that by logic, in my mind, that means that if the traveler was completely dead, evaporated, disappeared, annihilated, whatever, then that very much breaks the connection we have with the light. Just from my understanding, I don't see how we would be able to get light any other way.
So if you look at the storyline of Vanilla Destiny 2,
Mm-hmm.
we lose our light, we go to the shard of the Traveler, and then we get our light back before every other Guardian does.
Mm.
What is it? What is it that happened there? What is it that, and it seemed like no other Guardians could get their light from canonically anyway. No other
I know where
Guardians
you're going
could
with
get
Well,
their light from the shard of the
we
Traveler.
weren't the only ones who saw the vision though. Like Tyra saw the vision, she just chose not to go. So could there have been other Guardians who had gotten their light, but instead of being like, I need to go find Zavala, there were other Guardians who were like, I need to go protect some people. Like I need to.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's just a group of 5. I need to protect them. And it's just they're the kind of small time hero. We're like no, we need to fight the Red War, and others like I just need to keep people safe.
Well, there are other people in the non that believe that maybe the entire road that was laid out in front of us was purposeful and set forth by the 9, and the reason why we were led to that shard was because of that tether that they left for us to come chase. So there's that aspect too to think of.
Well, so what Rhino there is referencing is one of the later entries in the Dust lore book. It was I think it was the entry The Witch, where what's her name? The Dust is about a cryptarch going to find the 9, and so later on she finds the 9, Lavinia. Thank you, Dancing Vera. And a witch is all like, oh yeah, talking to her, and she like sees all the truth about the 9, and she sees how one of the 9 kind of cloaked the Red Legion's attack arrival so that the Dead Orbit troops and future War Cult couldn't actually see it coming. And that was what like gave them that like ability to actually surprise us.
Yeah, they couldn't see us through the satellite array network, or we couldn't see them through the satellite array.
So like that play there for the 9 was Gaul is coming to take light. They were like, I want to know how to take light too. So if we watch Gaul do it, we can do it. I don't see any of the 9 being like, okay, now also let's send out this Guardian to go get light, and being, like because if it was that simple, they clearly knew. If they knew you could just go to this shard of the Traveler and get light from it, they would have just done that.
Yeah, I don't think that people are saying that they knew. I don't think that they have like the capability of predicting accurately the future every time. I think that it was just an experiment like the Drifter was. We may have been, and this I'm only speaking on behalf of some of the people that believe that was an intentional thing set by the 9. So let's explore that for a second. Let's just say, what if they thought, in order for us to figure out how they are able to use, manifest, light, whatever, let's throw this obstacle out there and see what happens. Like throw a toy in front of the kid and see how he plays with it so we can understand that. Maybe there's something to that.
It's just only one of them wanted Gaul to get through, and that one was punished. The rest of them were like, no, what are you doing? Like, we need them. You're risking their survival. You can't do that.
So
also, that there's a parallel story that happened there too. Also, Aldrin, was very much out there. So I don't know.
Baxter?
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say, like, can we talk a little bit about the motivation of the 9? So, if I remember rightly, so there's a group of 5 and a group of 4 that have pretty different goals. Well, I suppose they all have the same overall goal, which is
survival.
Survival, yeah. But the 5 kind of believe that. So that there are 4 who want to find an alternative way. Is that a right way of putting it?
So the 9's existence hinges on our existence, this solar system's conscious existence. And so when the Traveler came, they were like, oh my god, wait, maybe we can find a way to exist without the solar system.
Right.
After so long of not figuring out the light, 5 of them stayed true to the light. 4 of them said, we need to find a different way. And the current attitude for the different way seems to be the dark, which per this podcast almost seems a little ignorant of the 9.
Yeah.
Sure.
So do we know? So the one who shielded Gaul was that one of the 5?
No idea. I would imagine if they were punished for almost taking out the light, I would imagine they were punished, or one of the 5.
Yeah, I feel like we've learned so much more about the 9 over the last few weeks.
It's almost overwhelming.
It is,
It really
but
is,
it still doesn't clear up some of the, that there's so much to take apart that it's understandable that it doesn't clear up everything, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's interesting because Bungie have answered a lot of, one of the things that I think Bungie have done really well over the last 9 months, especially with Season of the Drifter, is they've answered a lot of questions, but it's just raised more questions.
Well, another thing too, Baxter, is they're dealing with very philosophical ideals now, and some people are just, staring blankly at the screen like I am when I see some of these new things, and I'm like, huh? Being somebody who's very rooted in the items and descriptions and flavor text and the real life connective lore, it's sometimes really difficult for me to grasp some of these higher concepts that they've started approaching. And so I feel for a lot of the people that are out there reading this for the very first time and just now getting into the lore and experiencing it at face value and going, what in the hell are they talking about? It's very much overwhelming. But I think some of the very fundamental things that they've started talking about here recently are new philosophies and concepts that have recently emerged over the last couple of decades in our real life, as far as dark matter, as far as energy that is beyond our spectrum, as far as concepts of even spirituality. Some of these things that they're approaching now are very much new. Well, I mean, we haven't had 100 years of hypothetical discussion over it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they're starting to use some of the newer popular, theories.
Since we're talking a little bit about the 9, should we watch the Invitations of the 9?
So that's what I just I think I kind of messed up there. I'm not sure if it'll capture the audio.
Oh.
I hope it will.
Okay.
I don't think it will.
I'll open up the tab.
But yeah, so we have prepared a little not 0, that's not it. We have prepared a little review of this week's Trials of the Invitation of the 9, and so we're gonna watch that now. I'm gonna hit play. Hopefully the sound comes through. Can someone else hit play? It's doing that thing again. Anyone?
I can do it.
Thank you.
Oh, somebody else did it.
So
the audio is coming through.
Wonderful. So every week we get an invite from Zur. Every week it is a tarot card. This week is the third one. First one being the World, second one being Justice, third one being the High Priestess. The High Priestess brings us here.
The clever one is in peril. No, she will manage. They will annihilate her. Then she will die as one of us, gladly. She will regret before the end. You don't know the meaning of that word. She will beg for death's release. You cannot kill what has already died.
was going to go ahead and delete that in case it tries to make audio come back at us. So, yeah, so that was the third visit to the Nine. The second time we actually saw the Nine talking too. And one of my favorite parts about it, I didn't notice this. I saw someone in the Ishtar Discord say this. When the Nine start talking, there's like this ring of like energy kind of pulsating on the edges of the screen, and that's just one of my favorite like tiny additions where it's like, oh my god, that nails it for me.
Yeah. I think some people as well, I guess it depends on which way
sorry,
you come
I gotta interrupt you. Sean Vertigo just mentioned, someone brought up the fact that there are 5 orbs surrounding that platform. So it's like the 5 that are still working with the emissary, maybe. That'd be a nice touch.
It's kind of it's weird how much this all of the environments that the Nine that are associated with the Nine have potential for so much symbolism. Like there's so much going on, and you know, like that the Alpha Lupi kind of symbols are all over the place. It's really it's difficult to know. You know, Bungie are really good at leaving clues and kind of having you read into things, and a lot of those are kind of red herrings, and it's hard to know which ones are important and which ones aren't. But there's definitely it's definitely possible that the 5 orbs are related to the 5 members of
representation of the 5. And just what Egenetter? I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. That is a hard name to say. #next act, which exactly we have Mara fighting in the next act. That giant Mara statue slowly turning its head to the Guardian. That was creepy and awesome. And it's like the 9 are saying how Mara is like already fighting the next act. We know that it's happening, and there's just like so much coming up, and it's like this huge battle is just about to happen, and we're just like so close to it.
Yeah. Aphelion.
The Aphelion.
That would be great.
Are the Aphelion the next act, or is that just like another threat that's going to come down the line?
Yeah, well, I kind of think it's interesting that you know, if the Aphelion are in some way related to the pyramids, then it's interesting that the Awoken have already encountered them. Like, and how does that, you know, why, if they are as big a threat as they seem to be, why is it that we don't know more about them already? Like, when the Awoken already know about them.
Yeah, but they're very secretive.
Well, the Awoken also like kind of have contact with the 9, and we like, I remember the speaker saying if only the 9 would help, and it's like, can they help though? Like, can they really? They're kind of useless.
Well, they are, but at the same time, like how is it that they are able to send us these weapons via Xur? And
Well, see, that was the other thing is, you know, how much of that is motivated by their own curiosity, or if they're trying to manipulate our existence.
Yeah. But I just mean, you know, like physically speaking, how is it?
How, like,
yeah, like what is it?
I don't know. I mean, can we talk about the snippet of Xur and how he got his back broken?
I don't know how that's kind of relevant, but sure.
It's an odd.
I love that they did that. I love that they threw that like little Easter egg in for all the people that are like, I wonder why he's so hunched over, and it's like they just fucking tell you, but like, that's so weird.
Okay, so we know, and I don't want to go into the whole entire story about it, but we know that the 9 took their time getting here because it was a pretty. I mean, it took a lot for them to get here in a way that was physical, according to what we know now. And so that raises the question of Xur and how he exists. But look at his misshapen, oddly, you know, figured form and his, you know, tentacle snake face, all that stuff that's going on with him. and how he's bringing, gifts of the nine. I can't help but wonder if he was if he was just kind of not a mistake, but just wasn't what they imagined would be what their physical form would have been if they had gone here.
So that's actually one of the lines that Orin, the emissary, mentions when you go into Gambit Prime. She says how like Zur was kind of a prototype for communication with the Guardians, and she's the more refined model.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, when you think, I suspect Zur was kind of built from scratch,
It sounds like it, right?
Yeah, like Zur was like, okay, we need someone to be our emissary to the Guardians. Let's
what a freaking
create
weirdo.
someone. Yeah, and then they're like, okay, well, this was the best we could come up with. And then Orange shows up, and they're like, you know what? Maybe rather than making somebody from scratch, we can just like upgrade someone.
What do you mean they don't like face tentacles? What is that not normal? Oh my God, the Guardians, they're so picky.
See, that's a scary thing. Is they have the capability of using one of our own people as a shell.
Mm-hmm.
But what else could they do?
So really quick about that, as I mentioned as we were going into the invitation, we had the World Justice and now we have High Priestess. Each of them have a flavor text, which as we get more of them, people pay attention. As we get more of them, they will tell us kind of a story. It's kind of a dialogue of the 9, and just so you're prepared, it's actually dialogue of the 5 and then the dialogue of the 4. So now we have the first 3 from the 5, which would read fully: "We asked to see you. We chose our emissary because she chose us. But our first alliance, Zur, remains our most tenuous." So that's the three pieces. So Orin literally went out there. It was like, "Hey, 9, I wanna like work for you," and they're like, "Okay, cool. You'll be better than that weirdo." That also, you didn't even say it. When Orin went out to the 9, Zur was there, and Zur kind of spooked Orin, who was a Guardian, who was a Sunbreaker, and she's like, "Oh goddamn!" and hits him with her fucking hammer and breaks his back. Which just like, oh my God, that's good lore. This breaks Zur's back. Who cares?
Yeah, there it is. He'll never stand straight again, is what they say.
Yeah. It's kind of weird if you think about it. Like, he used to stand up straight. He probably had great posture.
I can't imagine him ever standing up straight. That's weird. That's like a cursed image. Like the thing that you're not supposed to see. It's like Zur standing up straight. Like No.
I always thought about the Lagoko from Halo and the worms that make up the hunters in that game. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, right?
No.
Okay, so there's these gigantic, tank alien guys, and they're called hunters, right? And they're these big purple dudes with spikes on their backs, and they have this green hand cannon on their left arm. Well, anyway, the entire form of this alien figure is made up of tons and tons of worms that are all sharing the same symbiotic form, and they create this big thing called the hunter.
Kind of like million ants.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. But they're called a Lagoko, and so whenever they make the hunters are just this mass lumbering, enemy combatant that you have to fight in the game.
Yeah, I was always more of a Ghost Crane fan anyway.
Ghost Crane?
Yeah, I mean, he's so much better than million ants.
This has become a Rick and Morty podcast.
It is transitioning. It's just happening, It just felt like the natural point to switch it up. So
Focus.
Focus. So the light and the dark was a big theme in Forsaken, obviously. Uldren, when he kills Cade, the light and the dark, so very thin. Do you even know what side you're on? But yeah, we're on the side of the light. We're fighting for the Traveler. obviously we know what side we're on. We're not fighting for the dark. We're fighting for the traveler, the light.
Right.
So I feel like the only reason why they would say the line is so very thin is not to say, are you fighting for the light or are you fighting for the dark, but to say, is your light the light? Is it this pure, untouchable thing? Like, that was like one of the first clues that it is one whole spectrum of power. And you can tap into the light, you can tap into the dark, but you're restricting yourself, or your ghosts, at the very least, are restricting you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know?
Yeah, I feel like coming from Uldren, it has to be more of like a mockery.
Yeah.
Because if it was coming from Zavala, it would make sense to go, oh yeah,
Yeah.
like you think it's either the light or the dark. But with the Awoken, they're so in the gray and they know it, and they know there's so much more to light and darkness, that for Uldren to say that, like, he just has to be mocking us, because he knows that it's not just light and dark.
Yeah.
So it's
You make
got to
a
be
really
like him
good
mocking
point.
us, like, hey, like, are you light or dark? Because there's more to it.
You
Zavala's
make a really good point. That's kind of the perspective of the individual leaders that we encounter. You know, if you're asking Zavala about how we should view the light, or if you're asking the Praxix, or if you're asking the Drifter, they all have different opinions as to how it is. And just like you're about to say about, you know, the Awoken that are out there waffling in between the two, they know so much more about it already.
Zavala is actually the perfect example of that, because Zavala would be the type to say, like, are you following the light or are you following the dark? And not to mean to say, like, that the light and the dark are, like, the same power and you're just too stupid to know that, but to literally say, like, what you're doing is the dark, Guardian. And it's like, no, it's not. It's still the light. I'm still a gunslinger. Like,
Right.
I think it's interesting because a lot of the Traveler was dormant.
mm-hmm.
The Traveler didn't have, the Speaker existed because the Traveler couldn't speak for itself.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that there were shades of grey is almost because we didn't have anybody. We as Guardians couldn't ask the Traveler, like, is this okay? Like, can we, like, I know we can't communicate directly with the Traveler, but there are instances where the Traveler has reached out to us, like the missions on Io.
The vision, the feathers, the other things.
Yeah. So, like, do you think it's possible that at some point the Traveler might be kind of like, okay, yeah, this isn't what I want. Like, this isn't why I made you. Like, maybe stop here.
Yeah.
Like, is that when you think of the other races that are described in the Books of Sorrow,
But yeah,
like,
okay. Go on.
yeah,
sorry.
I just wonder, like, did they have a more direct when they were fighting the Hive through history, and the Traveler was kind of there propping up, well, not propping, like, there were a number of civilizations that the Traveler seemed to have uplifted. Okay, now there weren't any Guardians and there weren't any Ghosts, but there were still people fighting against the Hive. Do you think that they had a more direct conversation with the Traveler?
No.
Yeah, I don't either.
I
think they did what they could do.
I think that the Traveler goes to places and is kind of uplifting you, and it's letting you have that control. Like, there were warlords, like, controlling people, and the Traveler didn't come in and say, okay, well, you can't be a Guardian now. Like,
but that's true. But with the warlords, the Traveler was dormant.
I guess.
But
it didn't wake up for them either. Like,
no, it didn't. But it only woke up when it was actually at a point where, right, okay, I have to, like, it was like make or break. Like, it was the last possible moment that it could have.
Well, remember the Golden
dormant.
Age. I mean, there was a whole entire time period where it was very much awake, I guess, technically. Before
That's true, and we don't know enough about that period. It seems as though the Traveler did not directly communicate with anyone.
That's what I think we know
I think it's
enough
just all
to
that
say that it
interpretation.
didn't communicate.
Well,
But
what's
then,
crazy
how
to
do
think
we?
is how the Fallen got to where they were without the Traveler once they were abandoned. I mean, they were very much able to, pick up what
Yeah.
fragments they had left over to kind of cobble themselves together as space
Because
pirates.
they were
That's
like a very advanced. There's a really old piece of lore where Varix mentions that the Cabal are actually using super old fallen Elixni technology. Like they went,
What?
yeah. The Cabal are just taking their like really old stuff and they're using it because the Elixni were so advanced. And then when the Whirlwind came, it was just a societal collapse. Like what they have now were just the pieces they were able to pick up. Like they were
Okay.
much greater than that.
I had never heard that before.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that about the Cabal and the Elixir tech.
I'll look for it. Like not now because it'll just be like
Yeah.
clicking.
Sure.
Yeah. No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, back to the light, and the dark with the emissary and the nine. Another thing that's neat is their existence on another plane is pretty interesting. But it's kind of a philosophical conundrum for a lot of people because it means that to exist in our reality, there had to have been a reality to come from where you existed on an alternate plane to cross over into ours.
Wait,
But,
I'm sorry, I spaced out. What?
yeah, no, exactly. So, okay, let me put this a little bit simpler. So, like, where the nine came from, they existed on that side of the coin, right?
Did they exist before us though?
Exactly. So
I don't
there's
think
the
so.
philosophical conundrum is the fact that they very much existed in an alternate, imperceivable realm, and now they exist here only because of the travelers. I'm just going to use a word to describe it. This doesn't mean a definition, but they're the traveler's rift and wake that he left as he passed through our solar system.
The nine existed before the Traveler though. They existed here before the Traveler. Like they were
Yeah.
the dark matter nonsense existence hinging on the human consciousness living in the solar system and all that. And it was when the Traveler came that they were like, maybe we can be something different.
There you
Well,
go.
was it human? I thought that the nine predated humans.
Well, I mean, any form of consciousness. So there. I would assume there were dinosaurs. There was something before dinosaurs. Whatever it was, the nine existed, and they just continued to exist.
Well, it's like saying there was always matter and there was always dark matter, and then from that there was always this soupy broth of the universe that things existed in. But until the building blocks started assimilating and building, living creatures, and then those living creatures gain consciousness and sentience, then we start to see the emergence of actual beings. And so I think that the philosophical conundrum that I keep saying is that the nine were very much made up of the material in between stars and out there in space. And now, in our perceivable universe, they exist, but they've always existed. Just to us now, they are more of a form and a being that they've had to create themselves in order to commune with us.
How long do you think it took? Because like the nine have been creating their form. How long do you think it took for them to even create that form? Like if their first blink of existence came with a living consciousness in the solar system or the planets, like whatever it was, like did they just immediately become like a sentient nine consciousness, or was it a millennia of time going by that they were just becoming?
My biggest thing that I keep seeing in my head is, remember the Black Garden and the heart of the Black Garden?
Mm-hmm.
And that big black blob that, was at the center?
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep thinking of just when I think of the nine trying to become a physical manifestation within our realm of existence, I keep thinking of, this mass, this formless mass, just as they had described it, trying to exist. And in order for it to exist, it's got to, grab on and use whatever's here in our existence in order to build itself. So, I mean, the Vex have circumvented that because they have, time. They have time manipulation. Plus, they're made out of more malleable materials that are able to, I don't know, go through the gates, however that works.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think of things and concepts like the Hive, and you think of the Cabal, and you think of the Fallen, like the Fallen were just of this universe. But you think about the Vex had to come here through a portal that Crota opened up by accidentally being tricked. Well,
I mean, they got into Oryx's throne because of Crota, but does that mean that it's asking where did he cut? What did he cut into? He could have cut into our universe, and there the Vex are.
Yes, that's all. I know I've heard different interpretations of that, but before we go off on a tangent, it's always been my understanding that the cuts that the Hive kind of cut into the world, they can only they cut. Crota cut from Oryx's throne into our universe, which let the Vex in, and he was tricked into doing that by Savathun. That's always been my understanding of what happened. Yeah. And I know some people have said, that Crota kind of cut into an alternate dimension and that let the Vex in. I don't know why. I don't have that. I don't think that's the case. And then, like...
I've always thought.
I mean...
I've always thought the other one.
Oryx eventually beat back the Vex from his throne world.
But they did take a worm larva.
Yes, but that's true. But I don't think that necessarily.
Oh, I'm not saying that's an argument for any side. I assume that's an interesting fact to think about, because you were talking about the Black Garden and that the black blob that they were kind of praying to. They took the worm larva and then they were like, okay, well, we don't know what the hell to do with this, so they created Quoria, which essentially dictated worship. And so obviously when we see the Vex in the Black Garden and we're like, why are they doing worshiping? Why would they worship? Vex don't have a concept of religion. And then we learn Quoria dictated worship of the worm larva. So in my opinion, the most direct correlation is that the black blob was I don't like saying it was the worm larva itself, like that it became that, but that was what became of the worm larva. Like they studied the worm larva and they created the black heart from the study of it. Not from the nine.
Maybe. I always presumed... Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I always presumed that the Vex found the heart of the Black Garden, and they had previous knowledge from Quoria, which meant that their strategy for dealing with it was to worship it.
So that was actually in the card. That's what Ikora says. She's like, they either found or created, and I feel like to say found or created is kind of specific and important.
Yeah.
And they found the worm, they created the heart. They found the worm, it became the heart. Because I mean, we're really getting off topic.
But, it's all connected to what we're trying to understand within this very short story that we got just now.
Well, what I was going to say is that if the worms are like many people have speculated in relation to the Ahamkara aren't bound to a physical form. So would the worm not be able to grow up into that like morphing black heart?
See, that's what's always been a big enigma for me, is how do we know that the different worms aren't just different aspects of the races that we see within Destiny. I don't want to say that like the worms are behind everything or they're like the single origin point for everything, but how do we know that each individual worm isn't connected in some way to each individual being that we encounter?
Like the worms are controlling the Cabal?
Like Akka an Ahamkara. You know, like, well, I used to laugh
Okay,
when
but
people would make
like
that
the
connection,
worms
but
are
now
controlling the cabal.
I wouldn't say like the worms are controlling Cabal. I think the
Any
Cabal is
worm
something else.
is being controlled by the cabal.
I would say that the Cabal are probably something else.
Okay,
From
so
what we
then
think
not
of them.
every race.
I
No.
don't think that yeah, well, I mean, it's possible that the worms are kind of controlling every race, but I think
I don't think so.
the entire hive civilization, you know, is founded around the pact with the worms, and I don't think there's any evidence. If you look at the Elixni, if you look at the Cabal, there doesn't seem to be anything like that in their civilization. The Vex, within their civilization as a whole, it certainly doesn't seem like there's anything like that. The only exception to that is the heart of the Black Garden, which they did
Mhm.
worship.
Well, I just think of the worm as being something more than what we take them as face value. That they've wriggled and wiggled their ways into,
Mm.
you know, certain places. Like for instance, you know, they're very much of the hive, which were proto hive beforehand, and then before that, they were whatever they were. You know, just I don't even want to go down that hole. But you know, there are things that seem to all be connected within the story. If you step back and look at it at a holistic viewpoint, I'm not saying that the worms are the single origin point and are the reason why everything is the way it is. All I'm saying is that they are very much embedded within every single story somehow, whether it be Fallen, Cabal, Hive, us. You know, we've got all the Taken, whatever. They've got some part to play within every story, it seems. And I can't help but wonder if they have wiggled in from some other place in some other way.
I disagree that they are wiggled into everything. I think it's unfair to say that Taken and Hive are separate entities. I think it's unfair to say that they have wiggled into our story because we are just fighting them. We are not being controlled by them. And also, mostly what I've been wanting to say for a second here is Dancing Viru. Sorry for shaking my camera. Dancing Viru just mentioned, yeah, to me the heart looked like, I disagree with Oryx's heart, but Riven's heart. So in Ahamkara, the black heart looks like an Ahamkara heart. If Worm's Ahamkara, same, blah, blah, blah. Could they have been worshipping the black heart, the worm larva's heart?
But you know, I mean, Riven's heart. I always thought it only looked like that.
I like that idea, though. That could have very much been a heart of something.
Baxter.
I always thought, you know, that Riven's heart kind of looked the way that it did because Riven had been taken.
Oh,
You know,
Ooh.
which kind of flips the, you know, I don't know. We don't have any other Ahamkara hearts to compare it to, unfortunately.
yeah. They're just, you know, it's out of season. We gotta wait until winter.
Yeah, Ahamkara season.
Isn't Riven's heart yellow at the end? I don't think so. I know at the end they're cleansing it, so maybe.
How do we go through his
yellow?
stomach and end up in his heart?
Well, I mean, it's
Or
on
his
the
mouth.
way.
The heart does
Just
turn into
swallows
like
it.
a yellow. I think it looks like a yellow like stone.
What have you done the
Looks
raid
like a
twice?
gemstone.
Now you know everything.
Right at the very end.
I was there both times.
Than you. That was pretty funny, though.
Does it actually
The two
turn yellow,
times you-
Guardian? Because you were the one that carried it to the end. But like, could that not just be the cleansing, or the fact that like our team always shoot the heart for no reason, and it could just be triggering the solar burn?
No, because I run it a couple different times, and every time I've been at the end with the heart, it does transform from looking like the Black Garden heart to, I think it looks like a yellow like gemstone. Like a smaller rock once it's cleansed inside the pit.
I'm just watching a video now.
That's interesting. That is interesting though.
I didn't notice anything yellow.
Maybe it's like the ghost from the second Invitation of the Nine that like has different colors based on nothing.
Ah.
If you do that on an alternate character, will you get a different color ghost?
Maybe. You might.
It's actually blue.
Okay, well, we're not
Like
doing
a
this.
soft blue.
The-
I've
Yeah,
seen red and
I
green
can
so
send
far.
the link. Like, I'll post it in the. This is just Professor Broman's video. Is that gonna work? Oh, it hasn't got the timestamp.
So go back to the tarot, Badon. What do you think is happening there with the tarot cards? Are we seeing a fortune telling, or are we seeing some sort of
Yeah, see, Sean Vertigo just said he watched it and he saw red. Don't even the heart doesn't exist. It is the heart is a lie. With the tarot cards though, we have 9 invitations coming. We're gonna have 9 individual tarot cards, and I personally think that if you were to lay out the cards, like that's kind of the issue. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or is it order of flip? You know.
Yeah.
So,
what does that mean?
Are there any fortune tellers in the chat right now?
Because you don't flip the tarot card, you don't flip them left to right. You know, they get flipped in a certain order. Even if they're 3 by 3, you don't flip them left to right, top to bottom. You flip them in a certain order. So, is the world the first flip, or is the world the top left? Which is that the first flip? I don't know.
I don't know anything about any of this. So.
Either way, I did look into what it would be. I laid out my prediction of the cards, the order
I'm
of the
actually
cards.
proud of you for that. That's pretty neat. That takes a lot.
Yeah, it did. It took me like an hour. But so I laid out the prediction of the cards, and I laid out, and I went through, and I'll pull it up because I can just get it on my phone really fast. I went through and I like kind of saw what it would be predicted upon, like just the base words. So in the past, there was travel, accomplishment, harmony, new perspectives, which yeah, that would be an accurate prediction of the golden age, the traveler. Accomplishment, the golden age, harmony. There was like a new piece of the world, new perspectives, you know. So then the present, fairness, truth, cause and effect, sudden change, upheaval, awakening, manifestation of resourcefulness, power, inspired action, stuff like that. And that fits very well again. It's like we have new powers coming. We just had our tower destroyed. The traveler is awoken now. Well, not awoken. It has awakened now. And then I'll leave the future out for right now. We'll see where it is in the end. But the future was pretty interesting too.
It's exciting.
It is.
That is exciting.
And
I like that they did that.
Yeah,
I
hope it was intentional. Like I hope they weren't just like, yeah, this one sounds good. But I mean, it doesn't just go in a number order. So
yeah, they tend to put so much thought into these things that you know, I would be surprised if there wasn't some thought put into it.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what's funny is, and I know this is just off topic real quick, but just the nature of using tarot cards is a callback too to some of the esoteric, what do you call them? I guess Easter eggs that we've learned before, like the Helena quote that Rasputin uses to get us to go to Io. She's a mystic and an esoteric medium, you know, from way back when, that was very highly respected back in the day. And so I think that it's neat that they've used these things that are by design, originally thought to have some sort of dealings with our own awakening into a astral plane, or being able to gain control of a power that's always been there that we just haven't awakened to. Does that make sense? So like the idea is that it's always been stored within you, you just haven't gained the conscious ability to manifest it, or, you know, wield it in a way.
So we're coming close to the end of our show, and I wanted to talk about one more thing since we actually do have the time. We'll have to keep it quick though. So the Queen's Court entries are kind of done. You know, Mara's off fighting the next war, and apparently she's in trouble. But we do actually have kind of insight of what's going on. In the rocket launcher Sleepless lore tab, Mara didn't have the dream. Shuraido had the dream. And in the dream, she sees Mara on top of one of the pyramids, and she punches it, and it like cracks in two. And Uldren's there, and he's saying like Promethea, something like that. Or am I confusing that with Borderlands?
Yeah, no.
Either way. Either way. He's there, and he's saying something, but obviously Uldren's dead. So could it just be the prediction, the vision that Shuraido saw, it wasn't completely true? Or could it be it took into account Uldren becoming a guardian? And so Uldren is no more. Uldren is dead. Whoever the guardian will not be Uldren. But also, before he died, he kind of had a lot of shit going on with Kara. And he had these philosophies, the light and dark, it's so very thin. So where will Uldren fall on this kind of plot? Like, and especially because, like, pulled pork. Like, it's pretty agreed upon that pulled pork was his ghost. And so, like, there was that, like, little tease, oh, maybe you'll resurrect the greatest guardian ever. And we always talk about, like, people always like to say, oh, we're the most powerful guardian ever. We destroyed the Vault of Glass, Crota's End, and this and that. Look at all the people that failed, and we did it. We succeeded. We're the best. And it's like, that doesn't mean that we're stronger. That just means we got lucky. Like, we just had the better team.
I think it's one of those things, like, especially the Vault of Glass, like, without the Aegis.
Yes,
we
exactly.
could, like, you know, without the sacrifice that Kaba made and the other members of the first fire team.
I hate that pronunciation.
You know, that is that word again, that sacrifice thing.
Kabar.
It's just always
Cabal. Without the sacrifice of the Cabal.
Yeah. But so that's kind of my point. Could it possibly be that Uldren will be one of the front runners of a, I don't want to use this term, but a gray guardian? Where, like, we have the Drifter, who's apparently able to tap in to multiple spectrums of the light, and he, you know, I'm no herald of the dark. I don't use the dark, don't worry. And no one's ever seen his ghost. Like, that's a big thing. Like, no one has seen his ghost. But that's unrelated. Could Uldren actually be another one who has such a capability?
I think, you know, Uldren has, you know, nobody knows that he's a guardian other than us yet. Yeah, really.
And Mara.
I think when Uldren arrives, like what kind of whenever a guardian arrives at the tower, they tend to get a pretty warm reception. It's like, oh, you're a new guardian.
Do they?
Like, well, I mean,
because we have that entry with Hawthorne where she sees the new guardian, and they were just like, yeah, here you go. And they just, like, kind of tossed him into the tower, and she's like,
yeah,
well, I'll help him.
She's a jerk.
Well, okay,
anyway.
it might not be a warm welcome, but it's definitely going to be a warmer welcome than Uldren would get. Like, oh, look, it's the guy who killed our beloved Hunter Vanguard.
Yep.
Like, I thought he was dead. I'm going to kill him. How many, like, and you know, he's not going to get a warm welcome.
No.
You know, he is hated by the majority of Guardians. So, I wonder if that will just lead to a different. You know, most Guardians are at worst kind of ambivalent towards other new Guardians.
Guardians are accepted. He will be unaccepted. What will that cause?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I hope that he's one of the ones to kind of take us down that path. Because I think if it's solely the Drifter, there's so many people that are like, I don't like the Drifter. He's fucking weird. And it's like, well, I guess even more people hate Uldren, but
yeah,
I think there's a redemption story that we're gonna see eventually.
But it's interesting because, like, you know, Uldren was completely manipulated into.
He was.
You know, it's not. I'm not saying he's a nice guy, you know, but at the same time, he's not a he. I still don't think of Uldren as a bad guy. I think that he
Right.
was a puppet of Riven, or whoever else was pulling the strings.
And the perfect example of how true that is he was eaten by
Yes.
the Chimera. He was eaten by the Chimera, and then when we destroy the Chimera and he falls out of its stomach somehow, he's just like,
Yeah.
"Where's my sister?" It's like, dude, you are long gone. Like, I felt bad
Yeah.
for
Right.
him. I was like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't kill him. Throw him in the prison of
No.
elders, whatever, but I wouldn't kill him.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that happened.
I'm not saying he doesn't need to be punished. I'm just saying the death was unnecessary. And I mean, all those people that did kill him, that were like, yeah, I fucking killed him. Like, oh, look what you caused.
Poor guy.
But yeah.
Yeah, screw him.
I hope,
He's an ass.
I really hope they keep up with the Allegiance quests, though. The style of Allegiance quests, where like
Yeah.
we'll get these simple choices, like one of the stolen intelligence entries, just to kind of completely change the topic. We see that there are 3 Kell of Kells rising. We have Varix making the House of Judgment. We have Mithrax making the House of Light, and we have Aramis, who is trying to revive the House of Devils. And all of them are going for Kell of Kells. The only real threat is Aramis. Like, you know, Varix is our friend, and he's kind of a all right guy, and Mithrax is completely like, no, I want to side with the Guardians. I'll you know, I'm with you. We're good. Aramis is the one that's going to be like, I'm going to destroy the city. I'm going to take the Traveler. We're going to have our golden age back. We're going to be, you know, pirates or whatever the hell they're going to do. They're going to tow the Traveler like the Drifter, you know.
Embrace the darkness.
And so what I'd really like to see is that we have the choice to make between Varix and Mithrax. And ultimately the story is going to go the same way. We're going to fight and kill Aramis, right? They're the threat. We have 2 good guys to pick from them. And ultimately, if you side with Varix, you're siding with the side that got Cade killed. I don't think Uldren is wholly responsible. I think the one who's actually responsible is Varix. He was like, oh yeah, you're crazy? Yeah, you can go. You can get out of here. We'll let you out of this prison.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, you know, like, I do think that Mithrax has had this almost like he's had a change of perspective that is like, you know, if you can't beat him, join him.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I feel like Varix hasn't had quite the, you know, Varix is like, people have forgotten the old ways.
Mm-hmm.
We need to bring back the old ways.
And I respect
And
that.
I'm not, yeah, but I don't think that Varix is going to be.
Mm-mm.
I think Mithrax is going to be more accepting of Guardians and the
Mhm.
Light than Varix is.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm always, you know, I'm a big fan of Varix, and I'm, you know, I really, I liked his character and his story,
Mm-hmm.
but I think, I think siding with Mithrax would be the better option for the city and for the Guardians.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Interesting.
I also think, to kind of bring it right back into everything. So on their first visit to the Invitations of the Nine, the emissary mentions how 2 other people from the Drifter, 2 others than the Drifter, were gifted by the Nine. The Hourglass and the Blade Sharpened Anew. And so, to me, my opinion is that the Blade Sharpened Anew is actually Mithrax. And canonically, in the Enemy of My Enemy quest, because if you don't know, you can either shoot Mithrax and kill both Mithrax and the Knight, or you can shoot the Knight and then Mithrax will just leave. But I think canonically, we killed Mithrax because in one of the most loyal lorebook entries, we have Varix talking to Cade saying, oh, you know, Fallen have ways of coming back to life, like Tannix, who was more machine than Fallen, so he can just, you know, upload a new machine. But he also says, like Mithrax, who, to this point, is just a normal Fallen. He should have no way of returning to life. Like, that should not be within his power. So could the Nine have revived Mithrax and said, form a house of light, align with the light, be another one of our emissaries as a way to bridge kind of a treaty with us and the Traveler.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, I mean, if we get another allegiance, Mithrax versus Varix, it's going to be another like 80-20, I think. Well,
Yeah.
actually, people would have to know. I'd have to go on a very strong propaganda campaign against Varix, but I will do it. Varix is
Yeah.
a piece of shit. End show. Does anyone have anything else they want to say?
No, I mean, I'm just excited. I guess there are going to be, hopefully, 6 more.
Yeah. 6 new ones.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to
Should be
repeat?
exciting. Well, I don't know, because I think the fact that I don't know. We'll see.
Because like with Mara's court, we can still go. There's just no
Yeah.
one there.
Yeah.
So either we'll just go into the derelict and then to the hall, and there will be a chest waiting for us, or maybe they'll repeat the cycle. There's more cutscenes coming too. I'm really excited about that. Like
that's
actual
pretty cool.
cutscenes.
Yeah. So we've got all these little cutscenes, these little vignettes to look forward to.
I wonder if one of them will be actually about Aldrin. That'd be awesome. Like to get like another snippet of Aldrin existence. Like maybe out in the wild, other Guardians do see him and they like hunt him down or something.
Ooh.
Like that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
How many? Okay, so when is the season? When is Penumbra?
3 months from now,
Yeah. So how many weeks is that?
at least 12, or
Okay.
at least 8.
Yeah. You know, there's also, we have the Revelry to look forward to in
what's
between
that?
here and that'll be fun.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, so so we're in the season of the Drifter. So then we've got, let's say hypothetically we've got, what did we say, 6 more weeks?
Yeah, give or take. 2 months. 2 months, 2.5 months.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's about exactly the amount of time.
Oh, yeah.
Before the next. Yeah. That's perfect.
Same with the Truth to Power. Truth to Power will end just before Penumbra.
Hmm.
So that'll actually line up really well. That can like get a lot of things going. But if you want to find more about us, we are on Twitter at Loose Canon Show, just like the name and the. I can't point at it. Baxter, can you point to the?
Like this? Wait.
Yeah,
Is that?
you got it. No,
I
first
don't
way.
know.
Yep, just where Baxter. Yep, where Baxter is currently pointing. Name just spelt like that. Follow us on Twitter. We don't tweet a lot, so put it on notifications. We'll say when we're going live, what the topic of the next week will be, and we will be back in 2 weeks because that's how we do our show on the 14th of April 14th. Oh wow,
Ooh.
that's easy. 14 days, 2 weeks. Look at that. All right.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thanks.